How do you recover from burnout? Ooh, we're diving in the deep end.
Well, I can speak from personal experience on this.
Greg, would you like to
Yeah.
share?
So, okay, burnout. Um, I guess we need some sort of definition, some sort of working definition.
Sure.
It's hard to know if you're burned out. It's kind of like think about a car. Like when it's burned out because it's just not. It won't turn over. It won't start. It's run out. Maybe it's run out of gas, and so you literally have a gas gauge that tells you
Right.
that it is on. It's beyond empty, and now it's not working. Um, a human being, when it comes to your emotions, mental, whatever, I don't have a gas gauge. So in a sense, like, could I pick myself up and carry myself from point A to point B? Yes, I could. I'm not a car, but I I feel like I have no motivation.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm emotionally numb and everything in me wants to pull the covers up over my head. I want to
Yeah.
quit everything.
It's truly just no joy in life, barely going through the motions.
I feel like I'm
Yeah.
out of gas, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been in that spot. I think I've talked to people, hear from people that are there, and I think you got to kind of take a look at in that moment, not allowing yourself to fall into full despair, maintaining some hope, and to look at some things. How did I get to where I am? This is kind of a theme, I think. And, we talked about New Year's resolutions, and if I haven't been able to keep up with my New Year's resolution, well, look back at how you got to this point. Why did the other ones not work? I think we look at this and go, what did I do? Like, was I overextended in terms of my schedule? And so I said too much yes. Is it season of life? We had these major life events, related to your family. Maybe there are high maintenance issues there. It's things that are really, really stressful, a lot of pressure, a lot of change. And sometimes you can be in the midst of a lot of things going on, and until you step outside of it and look at it, you go, wow, that really was a lot. Right. So I remember, like, I think back on when you and I got married. It was like we got engaged in November. I graduated college in December. I took a new job, my first job, in January. We bought a house in February and got married in March. So it's like 4 of your top 5 or 6 life change things that will
And I was going to say,
completely
in the middle of that, also, my grandfather died the day before our wedding.
right.
I mean, just, yeah, it was like
All kinds
of
of
them.
stuff. So in the moment, I didn't really go, hey, we just had 5 huge things. You're just kind of like going. And so even the good things like a wedding and then bad things like a death, it's all taken its toll.
Yeah.
So then it's like a year later, whatever, you look back, you're like, dang, do you remember? That all happened in 5 months. So I think people sometimes find themselves burned out, and you step back and look and go, man, I took a new job, and we had a baby, and we lost this over here, and I had that big conflict over there, and I took on this big project over here, and I didn't subtract anything from my life. It was all addition, and here I am, and I feel like I can't move. I overextended myself. And what you go into what I would call emotional debt. I can look at my bank account and go, I spent all my money and charged a bunch of stuff, and now it's all in the red. Well, what about emotionally when you're just doing so much, right? And mentally, you're overloaded and you end up in debt. So I think the way to work yourself through it, I always go back to Luke 10:27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbors yourself. That's how we're wired. We're wired heart, emotional, mind, mental, strength, physical, neighbor, relational, and spirit, spiritual, soul, spiritual. So I think you start to look and go, okay, I need to look at my habits. I need to look at, where I need to restore, where I need to take a break, what I need to stop doing, what I need to do more of. Like, I need some more things being added to my tank, added to my account. And I need to basically stop the deductions as much as I can. And there's some deductions you can't stop. I can't stop all the deductions, but there are some that I go, I totally could. Probably one phone call, I could stop that deduction. I could deal with that thing. I heard something the other day too, and then I'll kick it to you, but it was actually a guy talking about dealing with stress and anxiety. And he said, a lot of times I have anxiety around areas I could take action, but I haven't. And the action isn't even necessarily that I solved it. It's that I took action. So if you have an area that's kind of out of control and there's something you could do, I could go have that conversation. I could put that thing in motion. I could set up that appointment. I could do that. You take the action you can take, and it may not solve it completely, but it starts to give you a little bit of energy back. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's very true. I think that gives you a little bit of relief. I mean, I know I've been there. There have been times where I'm like, this is an elephant in front of me. And sometimes you feel like I don't even know where to start. Just take a bite somewhere, right? And pretty soon you're 5 bites in and you're like, I still have 95% of an elephant left, but like at least I've moved the needle. I'm going somewhere. I'm headed the right direction. And I think that really, I totally resonate with what he said there. I think that's very true. I think just taking any kind of action that you can is really helpful. I also think that a lot of times, I know for me personally, and I've heard this from a lot of other people, we tend to not want to ask for help. We tend to feel like this is my problem, my circus, my monkeys, whatever. You know, you can hire other people to work at your circus, you know, and I think that again, taking some of those actions where it's like, is this something that I can delegate? Is this something that I can hire out? Is this something that I can just get a partner in my family, my community, my marriage, whatever, to get some help with this thing? Because I think there's some embarrassment sometimes in feeling weak, right? To go like, I feel like I should be able to do this by myself right now, but I can't. You know, and the reality is that's not weakness. It actually does take strength to get to that place where you go, you know what, I am going to take this step, take this action, and ask for some support. And I mean, again, that's one I'm preaching to myself as much as everybody else, because I understand that can be hard to do.
Yeah.
In a place like that.
Yeah. I experienced some version of burnout probably like 2 or 3 years into our church plant. And I look back and it was like, we did the pre-launch in a way that was really, really challenging. You know, we didn't, like, I worked a job. I was bivocational.
You worked 3 jobs.
Yeah, it was.
And I worked 2.
Yeah, it was. So like we kind of took that path where the entrepreneurial phase, you're sort of thriving on fear in some ways. Like, oh, if we don't do this, it's not going to get done. So you're kind of running on that. Then the church gets going. You're trying to get it just where it's sustainable, and you know we have some kind of stability, and then in the middle of that, you're dealing with all this change, and everything feels potentially catastrophic. Everything feels like, oh, this could be the big one. And so that all of that season, a few years in, I just felt like, you know, we lost some relationships, and we had to hurt some feelings and had our feelings hurt and all this kind of stuff. And so you get to this spot where it's like, I was just wiped out. And I started to step back and realize some of it were psychological shifts I needed to take. Some of it was, I need to reset my pace. I can't like that. That was a startup pace. You can't
live at a sprint.
I can't live at that. No. I got to reset, and I got to count the cost of doing that, right, and embrace the risk associated with that for the reward, which is to be able to, you know, establish a life that I actually want to live, you know, to be able to be healthy. So I think you have to do some of that. You know, I am nowhere near burnout right now, but like I've been, you know, feeling a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety around just, you know, these building projects. It's a tiring season. Yeah, everything I'm trying to do. And so recently a good personal example is I've been struggling to like keep my energy to what I need it to be in order to do what I need to do. And so then also again this year I'm turning 45, so I have some stress around like, man, this is the age where stuff starts going bad, you know, and
parts start breaking down.
Both my dad and my grandfather, you know, had heart attacks, and so I'm like, you know, am I good, you know, and just wanted to make sure I don't let down my family, I don't let our church, all this people down. So I was just like, what is my reality? Like I know in general, like, you know, I can work out hard and whatever, but I don't know how healthy I am. So I set up a meeting. I set up an appointment with a doctor. I set up a blood test. I set up all, just some new rhythms and processes that I really haven't had. I've kind of gotten away with being young enough to just exercise, eat right, fairly, you have what you need. And it's like, no, you know what, I'm going to put, so literally just setting the appointment, going to the appointment, getting my blood draw, doing all that stuff slowly, a little bit at a time, even before, I get better supplements or whatever. Even before I solve the problem, it started to have an impact in terms of giving me a little bit more energy to go about. So I would say to the person who is, what advice I would have on a person who's in the burnout position would be, don't fall into despair. Look at heart, soul, mind, strength, neighbor, right? Look at all these areas. They're all related to each other, and start one at a time, taking steps, the steps you can take, the stuff you do have control of. Start to take control of the areas you do have control. And I think you'll start to get a little bit of momentum, and that'll all start to impact each other.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
But it might be a long road, and you got to embrace that as well. You're not going to wake up tomorrow, take a magic pill,
right,
and feel great. If you do, that's probably the wrong pill.
Okay. That's a good place to move on.